here in just a moment. I love how the meeting that I initiated tells me, hey, by the way, you're going live, just in case you want to still be part of this meeting. I do, because I started it, because it's my program. So yeah. Anyway. Okay.
An expert on the bloody obvious.
Exactly. I'll tell you.
I caught that I caught that on a Faulty Towers program one time.
And I'll tell you
the expert on the bloody obvious.
What really stinks, and I mean really stinks, is how I can't just, in fact, since we're in the pre-show, if there's anybody out there who happens to know how, crap, oh, bloody hell. If anybody knows how to program or build a list on Facebook where you can share things to multiple places at one time, I would be thrilled to hear about it. Because doing everything one, no. It's hard. Doing everything one location at a time is infuriating at a minimum. There has to be a better way. I mean, there just has to be. There's just got to be a better way. There has to be a way to share en masse, as it were, breaking out the Latin for the special program tonight.
Would George know anything about how to do that?
He's not here, but no, he actually doesn't. We have actually tried. I just don't know if somebody else out there knows.
Well, I wish you luck. I can't help.
Well, darn it, Franz. Why can't you help? Come on. Wow. Let's free up some life for me. The show that we did, I think it was 2 Wednesdays ago now. Was it last month? No, I think it was 2 Wednesdays ago. Was extremely well received. So this appears to be a pretty good time slot, as it were. I had this discussion with someone today that even though we do not make money on this program, goodness knows, my bank account certainly knows, that you still have to do things based on ratings and who's listening, because you don't want to be the proverbial tree in the forest. The tree falling in the forest, I guess, is a better metaphor.
Yeah.
Come on. Good Lord, this is taking a long time. Come on. This iPad is just about. Wait, is this boring stuff or what? Gosh, this is boring. there. Trying to do two things. It's already going well. R2. Oops. The L. Oops. It's going to be tight. It'll be a tight clock. Page. Post. Come on, come on. No. Wrong button. That makes it worse, of course, when you hit the wrong button. Post. And that. Minimize. I am now up to groups. Here we go. Now we're going to fly. Now it's going to go. 3 minutes. Oh my God, 3 minutes. It's like having 3 hours. Pre-show. Oh, gotta love pre-show. I sound calm and collected, don't I? Of course I do. Like I know what I'm doing. But don't tell anybody, because then they expect you to do it all the time. So you're doing our group sharing now for this special episode. I know I say it during every program, but the groups that allow us to share into their groups, we are beyond grateful. We simply could not be here without you. We have Facebook groups from Oregon, from DC, from Massachusetts, from the Las Vegas area, and of course, all across the Commonwealth. And we just couldn't do it without you. If you did not let us share into your groups, we simply could not do this program. So we are eminently grateful to you. We are infinitely grateful to you, which I think is probably the better word to use there. It's always good when the guy that does the radio doesn't know the right word to use. Every time you hear one of those little chimes there in the back, that's another group that we have shared to. We simply couldn't do it without you. And so we're thankful to every single group that allows us to be part of your group. The funny thing is when I occasionally share into the wrong group, like the group of owners in the timeshare that I own, I'm sure they're thrilled when I send the political program in there. Fortunately, they have not kicked me out yet. But occasionally I do share into the wrong group because I have fat fingers and I tap on the wrong thing and it all goes to hell. But we're almost there, gang. It's 7. We will be going live very shortly. Welcome everyone. Hang on just one moment and we will be live in 3, 2, bring her down, and 1. Welcome, welcome, welcome from my humble second bedroom here in the Saucon Valley, formerly known as Lower Saucon Township, now the Bethlehem Landfill Township, after Waste Management's full out purchase of our township council. God bless Citizens United, kids! Formerly Lower Saucon Township, anyway, the Saucon Valley, part of the Lehigh Valley in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, part of these United States on this planet Earth. The only one we have. Third rock from the sun in the Terran solar system, part of the Milky Way galaxy. This is a special episode of the Kennedy Effect, live with you for Wednesday, May 18, 2022. I'm just now realizing that I forgot to tell the TikTok crowd that I was on tonight. Yeeks. Oh, well, we told everybody else they'll listen later. As always, if you ever miss any of our episodes, and why would you do such a silly thing, you can always find us on our YouTube channel, which is also that other side of information. But for everyone across the Facebook universe and the nearly 100 places that we have shared this program this evening, thank you all for being there. If you heard a little bit of the pre-show, or what I generally refer to as the pre-show, because you have to go onto Facebook first before you actually talk to people, and you have to share things one by one by one by one, and it takes me sometimes up to 15 minutes to get it all done. I thank every single group and every single individual that shares this program, that allows this program to be on your page, in your group, wherever it is that you put it across Facebook. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I do not make money on this program, but we also do things based on ratings and people. If you were not there listening, we could not be here. The conversations and programs and shows that we do, I think, are pretty darn good, to be perfectly blunt with you. I think they're pretty good, but we don't want to be the proverbial tree falling in the forest either. So we thank you very, very much for allowing us to be on your Facebook areas, your little slices of the Facebook universe tonight. Hot101.net, our name is our web address. It's hot101.net. You can listen to hot101.net a myriad of ways, a plethora of ways, dare he say. The Apple App Store, if you have an Apple device, the Google Play Store for Android. You can tell Alexa to play hot101.net. And if you have any other type of phone device or tablet device, so to speak, the TuneIn radio app, go to the search bar and look for Hot 101, or type in hot101.net, and you'll find us. And of course, TCP, the Culture Professional, a proud, growing, and shining example of a growing, proud, strong, minority-owned business right here in our own Commonwealth out of Lancaster. I will open up the phones later in the program. There will be guests popping in and out throughout our 2 hours. A short, quick hit, 2 hours. If you're used to our program, you know we go 3 to 4 at times. I did over 4 hours on Sunday. But it was a great conversation. So lots of guests popping in and out. We are going to be reviewing, talking about yesterday and the primary elections, mostly here in the Commonwealth, but we'll hit on a couple of races across the nation. Specifically, the one congressional race in Oregon has me excited. We'll be talking about all of it, not just what happened, because the numbers, the percentages, the winners, the losers, and so on, we can all look that up on the internet. But what does it mean? We want to get into what it means. What did it tell us just 24 hours away? Well, theoretically less than that, but 24 hours away from it. What does it say? What does it mean to us? Joining us to start off the program, a young lady that I've been trying to get on this program for a very long time, and her heavenly bright white headphones are just making me long for such things. They look kind of Space Odyssey, sort of. They look kind of science fiction-y. They look a little like Passenger, Star Trek-y, kind of, sort of. Is Jillian well, they look very clean. Is Jillian Kratzer. Robert Kosh, our old friend, who has been, well, not that he's old, I'm old. I'm older than everybody. Comes back to join us again, and Professor Chuck Panaccio, all of which joining us at this current stage. We are expecting other folks to bounce in and out throughout the 2 hours. And that's actually kind of exactly how I wanted it, because I wanted to get just as many different opinions as we possibly could. We will get as detailed and down into the weeds as time allows, but let's just get started. Let's dive right into it. Jillian, your first impressions, takeaways, etc., from the Pennsylvania primary, or if there's any national races that you want to hit on. Your general takeaways from yesterday, it's yours. Go.
Well, I think that for the most part, things played out pretty much the way that I expected them to, although there were certainly things that I thought were iffier. So I will say that Austin
Is that
Davis,
a scientific term, iffier?
Yes, that is a scientific
Okay,
term.
brilliant.
That is a
Brilliant.
term that
Good
I
to
learned
hear.
in political science.
Excellent. Good to hear.
Well, iffy. But yeah, I think Austin Davis really knocked it out of the park. I honestly thought it would be a little closer. So good for him. I genuinely, for me, there was one race and it was Summer Lee. And all I wanted on this earth. So I spent a lot of time refreshing that.
Yeah.
I feel pretty good about it now.
This is not in your neck of the woods, and I can certainly understand why you would have not perhaps paid attention to it. Pat Brown lost.
I saw that too. Pat Brown and Stan Saylor.
Yeah. Did you see
that? Just
I was
brightened my cold heart. Yeah.
Yeah, I was particularly joyed at Pat Brown. Go see you, kiddo. You've stolen enough money.
Yeah.
Go on then.
Peace out.
At the bench. You're done.
Beautiful.
See ya. Retire. Or take it. We'll probably take some cushy lobbying job in there. But still, yeah, that one. And that's not to say that the gentleman that beat him is any better. I'm sure he's not.
I'm sure he's also
I'm sure
awful.
he's not, but it didn't break me heart, that's for sure, to see
Yeah, 100%.
Brown take a seat. That's brilliant.
Yeah, and I mean, in my neck of the woods,
brilliant.
I think one of the most important things, or one of the biggest unknowns, is our congressional race, which of course we did search far and wide and asked many people. But Mark Kritz sort of, he had made a Facebook post that he was going to write himself in, and a lot of people sort of picked up on that. And so we said, screw it, let's write in Mark Kritz. So there was a very last minute effort. So I can't wait to see how that went. We're getting in sort of preliminary, how many write-ins were there, but not every county has out, who wrote in whom. So we're still waiting on that one, probably beginning of next week, I would expect, but fingers crossed.
Robert, my dear friend, sir, what, from watching from our eastern neighbor, a state where I resided for a good chunk of my life, and a state that Pennsylvania could learn, I can't even quantify how much Pennsylvania could learn from New Jersey. What did you take away from last night, looking, I don't want to say looking from afar, but kind of looking from an outside perspective, if that's the right terminology? What did you take away from yesterday?
I have to say, it is a show for sure. I'm not going to put another word in front of it. I believe that the Republican nominee for governor of the Commonwealth is frightening. Just absolutely frightening. Anybody who still believes or advances any kind of commentary that the election is rigged, this happens, that happens, and
let me ask you this, Robert, because I think you'll agree, but God bless you if you don't. Tell me, have that back at me if you don't. Do you find it ironic that a gentleman who was at the insurrection took buses full of people to the insurrection, took selfies and broadcast them, was at an event to end the American experiment as we know it, now wants to be the head of the government.
Right.
The irony is nauseating.
Jeff, it's not even irony. What he professed when I was watching CNN earlier today, and he's talking about what he's going to do on November 8th. I mean, he's fully cocked and believes that this is going to happen. And I mean, you and I have had dozens of discussions. I'm a huge World War II buff, fan, whatever you want to call it. And if you go back into any of these speeches or tactics that Hitler used, 1939, hey, the Polish are animals, let's go get them. You look at what Putin is advancing in relation to his denazifying Ukraine. I mean, this is bizarro world on steroids. And to have someone like this in a possible position of power, even though I'm across the border, the Delaware separates us, but it's just frightening. It's absolutely frightening to me. And to now really look at what went on with the Dr. Oz, I forget who the other guy was, and the young lady.
Mr. McCormick and Miss Barnett. If
you go back to 2012, there was a movie where Zach Galifianakis and Colin Farrell starred in, called The Campaign. And it is just one of the funniest things. In 2012, it was comedy. But it talks about a group of wealthy industrialists who sold off a part of North Carolina to the People's Republic of China, and they were going to insource labor at 5 cents an hour. And if you watch that movie, it really is. It's a great comedy, but it's playing out today, and
the Delaware could look like the Rio Grande if there's a Republican sweep in the Commonwealth. I mean, somebody's going to get offended by that remark, but you get my point. I mean, and having been born and raised and lived a good chunk of my life in New Jersey before moving back to the Lehigh Valley, and by the way, Phillipsburg is part of the Lehigh Valley. That north on the Delaware really doesn't divide anything. With a governor like Phil Murphy, I mean, we should be learning a lot and taking a lot from New Jersey. Professor Chuck, thank you for being here from an airport, I think still. That's how dedicated my friend Chuck is. He's actually coming in from an airport. Let me just ask you a general opening thoughts on yesterday.
Yeah, thanks. It's going to get noisy in cycles here. I'm in Fort Lauderdale. It's an indirect route to Denver, where I'm headed for a hybrid conference, a single payer conference over the weekend. So I moved out to Sharpsburg, which is just north of Pittsburgh, and I spent Saturday and Sunday knocking doors for Summer Lee, also talking up John Fetterman's candidacy, with a lot of my friends back in Philly who were intent on voting for Malcolm Kenyatta. I'm glad that he wasn't a spoiler, as it were. I tried to remind people that Malcolm was never a Bernie-crat. He supported Biden from day one, that we postured as the most progressive in the campaign. So I'm actually very happy that Fetterman won. I believe he is the strongest statewide candidate. And the fact that Summer Lee won sends a real message to these dark money forces, these super PACs. They dumped almost $4 million in dark money trying to smear her. And I talked people off of that stuff at their doorsteps over on Saturday and Sunday. And what's interesting is that almost the entire white political establishment of Pittsburgh and Allegheny lined up with Steve Irwin, who was an anti-union corporate lawyer. And I just scratched my head. I'm thinking, Dan Frankel, Jimmy Furlow, Jimmy Furlow, who passed away over the weekend, by the way. I just didn't get it, other than to say to myself, are we really that unenlightened in the year 2022? Do we really not see the outlines of fascism coming in this country? Do we not see the coup of January 6th last year as the starting point of something that is continuing going forward? We really do need to wake each other up, and hopefully we can pivot to that discussion a little bit later. But I also think Kurt Schrader, that Blue Dog Democrat out in Oregon, went down, I believe.
Yes, as of around 2 p.m. I will try to Google it as we go through the program here. But he was down to McLeod Skinner, Jamie McLeod Skinner.
That's very good news.
Kurt Schrader is a Democrat in name. He is about as conservative a Democrat as you get. I think what keeps him in the party, if I'm extrapolating a little bit, in no way am I an expert on Kurt Schrader. He's still socially liberal, but he is financially owned. And he was the leading Democratic vote that torpedoed Medicare's ability to negotiate drug prices. And that is exactly what Jamie McLeod Skinner ran against. And this is not your guy. He can wear that D, but it doesn't mean he cares about you. And as of around 2 p.m., as I was listening to Tom Hartman, she was ahead. It wasn't by a lot, and there was still, I think, one county to come in, but she was ahead. I will try to find it while we proceed here.
Well, this is very good news for the social justice world, especially on single payer healthcare justice, because not many folks know this, but Oregon and Washington are the leading wedge states moving toward universal healthcare. And though Kurt Schrader's in the Congress does have a role in enabling the states with federal funding and what's called an ERISA waiver, Employee Retirement Income Security Act waiver, to allow states to move forward. So that's very good news. So I'll stop there and look forward to hearing from Jordy and more from Robert and Jillian. Thanks so much for having me, Jeff. I'll tone out now.
No, thank you for being here, especially from an airport. Thank you. And on short notice, too. I think I only got to Chuck a few hours ago. Jordy, welcome back to the program, my friend. And I know that you have been working all day. You picked beautiful scenery. And the daylight is holding out, and it looks like the rain is holding out. I hope it doesn't pour on you. But we're just going through an opening round from everybody that's here of just your general thoughts, takeaways, etc., from yesterday's primary election.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here. It's a great group of people to be with. I have not had a lot of time to digest it, I'll just maybe say two things that are not in any way connected. One is, and I think there's more results to come in, but I think there were a lot of people who've been elected to the state house in 2018 or 2020 who are either rerunning or, like in Summer Lee's case, running for Congress. And maybe her race is still very, very close. Last I heard, she was ahead. But there are a bunch of others, and maybe other people on this call can name some of them. I think Liz Fiedler is one, Rick Kajewski is another. Our city councilman from Lancaster. I think his first name is Izzy. I'm not sure. I think he won. So my point is, there are a lot of really strong progressives, not just their policy issues, but just the little bits and pieces I've seen. Like, people are just really charismatic, really running from, running on good issues, but also running like people first grassroots campaigns. They were being challenged by a lot of the old guard machine. So if I'm right that a lot of them did hold on to their seats, or in some of these cases kind of do an upgrade, or it's not quite a promotion, but run for a higher office in terms of Congress, like, that's fantastic. So that's one thing. The second thing is, maybe this is too obvious, but I caught a little bit of mainstream media Monday night, and I don't see a lot of it, and I forgot how much they always frame everything in terms of like the national conversation. And so it's like, where does this Senate seat, what does it mean for the balance of power in the Senate? And I understand that, but I think it kind of does a disservice to the fact that we don't actually have national elections or national plebiscites. And so sort of kind of talking about what happens in the GOP primary only in the context of like the national thing, it kind of misses the key dynamics on the ground. I mean, Kathy Barnett, I mean, she had a lot of money from the Club for Growth. She's more MAGA than Trump in some ways, but Trump picked Oz, and then McCormick is like, I guess, cooked up in like the clone factory of ideal GOP candidates from circa 2003 or something like that. He had a lot of money. Mastriano,
He has his own money. He's
his own money,
multi-mega millionaire in his own right. He's a hedge fund manager.
right? So, you know, it wasn't as easy as was it Trump's guy or not. There's some throwdown fights going on the GOP side.
And if anybody watched, Jordy, any of those Senate debates, I know you watched a ton of them and yet survived. Your eyes did not bleed out of your head. You can still see. But you watched a lot of those debates. I watched them too. I didn't watch all of them. I didn't get them all in their entirety, but every time I saw one on PCN, I'd stop and pick up a few minutes of it. I mean, in both of the statewide, well, all three really, lieutenant governor, governor, and Senate, you had a group of people on stage just tripping over themselves. So who could be more fascist? Who could be, no, women? No, geez, Jillian, you're not even going to be able to decide what to eat for breakfast in the morning, let alone what to do with your own health and elections.
And nobody should
Tough.
trust me to do that.
Yeah,
Why would
well,
you
that's
trust
true.
me to know?
What to drink
I don't
for
know things.
what to drink for breakfast? I trust you. What to
I
pick to
don't-
drink for breakfast? Something fruity. It's a breakfast
I
thing.
don't know.
Or
I'm
Guinness.
gonna have
Guinness is a
Chardonnay
breakfast
right now, and that's all I know about.
Guinness is a breakfast beer. It's very good for breakfast. But
Mhm.
but you know, women choosing anything, really anything? No, we can't have that. Elections, we don't need elections except for us. Then we'll shut them down. You know, public schools, we don't need public schools. They're not profitable. I mean, these people were tripping over themselves to not just move right. Some of them went so far right, I'm surprised they didn't run into themselves. It was a reverse NASCAR track. They couldn't stand it. And it's, you know, so I agree with you in a very long-winded way. This is not just about, well, you know, McCormick's the quote unquote regular Republican. You obviously didn't listen to him during these debates. Bull, you know what? He's not even close, is he? So yeah, but it is, I understand though that they do the MSNBCs. I would say this quickly as an aside about MSNBC. They had the best coverage of all of it last night. PCN was unwatchable. And our local channel here in the Lehigh Valley was, I mean, they were just, I don't even know what they were doing, to be honest. I mean, they spent a lot of time at election parties for unopposed candidates. I don't see what the point of that was. It took me till this morning to realize that Pat Brown lost because they didn't talk about it last night. And I didn't go to bed till after 11 o'clock. But anyway, so yes, I'm sorry, Jordy, you're right.
No, it's okay.
We can't all put it that way.
Right. But I think, sorry about the cars. I think my second point in a more succinct way, something you said helped me think of it, is like the fight between the corporate wing of the GOP coalition and the MAGA militant, you know, full-throated right-wing Christian nationalist, fascist, whatever, pick your term. Like that fight is still going on, and I don't know that it's over. You know, the moneyed wing does not go gently into that good night. That's one of the things I think is still going on that people should be aware of.
I hate to, well, we did some surprises. Jillian gave us some surprises. Chuck, when you look through the results from yesterday, were there any surprises to you? Anything that really jumped out at you and you said, wow, I can't believe that happened?
I thought Brian Sims would have done a lot better, and Malcolm Kenyatta. I mean, at least the buzz I was getting anecdotally, I thought both of them were going to at least, if not be competitive, at least go north in the double digits, you know, so that did surprise me.
Agreed.
Yeah, so as far as the Pennsylvania races are concerned, those are probably my two biggest surprises. Yeah.
How about you, Jordy? Surprises from yesterday?
I'm really, no, I'm just, but mostly because I just so busy doing other things. I'm not as up on kind of expectations. I mean, I agree with Chuck. I thought Brian Sims would have done better. I certainly was very strongly supportive of him personally. I mean, just, well, this wasn't from yesterday, but, you know, in my new congressional district, which is the 15th, I got drawn into a new one. You know, the Democratic, broadly, the Democrats, there was not somebody on the ballot. So it was a write-in contest between two people trying to get on the ballot. And I'm I'm shocked that I'm still surprised that it was so disorganized, and I don't mean to just sort of, I know rural Democrats, it's like a hard thing, Jillian knows this too. I don't think, are you in the 15th? You're not in the 15th, are you?
I'm not in the 15th, but I have been on the back end conversations about that for a while.
Okay. So regardless of the people involved, it's just, like, I'm not trying to, can I curse? I'm not trying to like crap on the rural Democratic leaders. It's really hard. They get no support. So, but just sort of institutionally, the whole state party needs to look at not even having a decent candidate. Like, how do we change that?
So let me actually push back on that a little bit. And I do agree with you to some extent, but like, here's the thing. And this is something that I learned. I've been a Democratic County chair for 8 years now. And you have to be responsible for recruiting your own candidates, period, end of story. And it's hard. It's really hard. And it sucks. It really sucks, especially when you're out here. It takes relationship building over a long time. And like rural Dems, as indeed we are, will constantly say like, we know our areas better than anybody else. Well, if we're going to know our areas better than anyone else, that means that we need to find the candidates to run, because then the second the state party is like, oh, we found this person to run, then the criticism is, well, they don't know the district really. And like, we can't have it both ways, guys. Like we have to do the work, period, and end of story. And it's like, again, it's not easy. And sometimes it's not particularly fun, but like it has to be done. And we cannot continue to blame the state party for everything that goes wrong. Jeff, am I allowed to swear on this podcast? A little bit.
Legally, yes. I stick to FCC rules. I try to, because I know actually that I actually know for a fact that we have younger listeners. So I do try. And look, I'm sure it's nothing that they haven't heard, to be honest. It's the United States in 2020, but I tried to stick.
Hi, sweet babies.
If there's younger listeners, maybe they can teach us some new curse words.
Nobody.
Hey, let me ask a question, if not to interrupt. What I just find it fascinating now that the Republicans have to rely on mail-in ballots. I just find that absolutely gut-busting funny, and I want to hear from you folks who are, in the area. What do you think where do you think those ballots are going to rest? What's the good money on?
It's a great question. I would again, I'm almost buying into the thing that I just complained about. But of the two of them, I think McCormick still somehow comes out of this as the more normal.
Mm-hmm.
Ashley Shea says in the chat that she's pulling for Oz because she believes he'll be easier to beat in a general election. I kind of agree. His name recognition obviously is off the charts, but he's not a politician by any means. McCormick is still the more normal of the two, and look, you're really splitting hairs there. Yeah, exactly. A lot of air quotes, like really huge air quotes. But you're really splitting hairs. McCormick's got a lot of money. Oz can get money, but McCormick can put in his own. But I think really at the end of the day, and I would not chalk this up, I'm happy to hear everybody else's thoughts. With great and deep respect to the other candidates in the Senate race, we got the right guy. There are a large, I think personally, there is a large percentage of non-affiliated and independents and disaffected Republicans that will vote for John Fetterman. There were other Democratic candidates in the Senate race that they would never have voted for come hell or high water. But I do think they can vote for Mr. Fetterman.
Who are those candidates, Jeff?
Well, the race is over. So there's no sense in getting into it at this point,
Oh, I
in my
see.
humble opinion. Well, personally, I'll give you one. I'll give you one.
Mhm.
I don't see any. Look, it's sad. It's extremely sad. It's depressing for 2020. There are areas of this Commonwealth, Jillian and Chuck and Jordy know well, that would never have voted for a gentleman like Malcolm Kenyatta. They just wouldn't have. It's sad
Oh.
and it's depressing, but in my humble opinion, it just wouldn't have. And Mr. Lamb, and I think this is what came back to bite him at the end of the day. Oddly enough, I think his family name didn't help. It usually does, but I don't think it did here. And I have never forgotten a tweet from him. And want to say it was either late in November or in December, where he tried to mansplain to the rest of us that if you wanted a quote unquote regular Democrat,
No, normal.
was your
He used
guy.
the word normal.
normal Democrat, he was your guy. So does that mean I'm effing unnormal, innormal, irregular, unregular, irregular? Because guess what? I'm sorry, what's the name on the screen? Because guess what?
Well, you may be
F
irregular, but that's
you.
something else will fix. I think you're looking
Single
for
pay.
abnormal.
Well, it's going to take a tremendous amount of therapy, and that's why Robert's here. But it's going to take a tremendous amount of therapy. Start
Take
taking
notes.
notes, please, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah,
How did you
listen,
feel
I
when
should
your
be
mom?
I should be
Let
on
me
a couch.
briefly
I should be
drag
doing the
us
show
down
from a
this
couch.
road. Let
I
me
should be
briefly
doing this
drag
from
us
a
down
couch.
this road.
Robert should have a tweed jacket on with glasses that he can pull down below his nose.
Like, tell me, how does that make you feel?
I know. How do you feel about that? What is it?
Mhm.
What did your parents think of that? But yeah, but does that mean I'm irregular? Is single payer healthcare irregular? That's
You
irregular.
keep saying
want people to
irregular,
have
Jeff. Just so you know,
healthcare? Is
irregular has
public
to-
education irregular? You're gonna try to define me and tell me what a regular Democrat is? Go home. You
Yes.
lost.
If
So
you're
on
having
that, yes.
regularity problems, you need a different doctor than Robert.
Yeah.
Amen.
If I just volunteered Robert, he didn't even know it was coming. I just volunteered him. He didn't even know that was going to happen.
So
Anyway, I'm
listen,
sorry. You guys are here
no,
to
yeah.
talk. You guys go at it.
let me just drag us down this road for a minute because I am I'm just so thrilled to be on here with you four lovely white gentlemen who are all slightly older. You know, I was with Malcolm in some parts of the center of the state and people received him really well. I grant to you that it is entirely probable that he's not going to get Republican crossover votes, but like, I frankly don't actually believe that John Fetterman's going to get as many as you want him to either, which is not to say that he can't or won't win, because I'll be busting my fatouche for him. And that's what we need to do, right? So like, let's address this. Number one, in the year of our cat 2022, we're not doing spoiler candidates anymore. That's garbage because nobody is owed any of this. You work for the seat that you're running for. And if you don't win, that's on you. A candidate who is qualified to run, which he is, ran.
Please know, Jillian, I hope to God I'm wrong about.
Oh no, I know that, and it's fine.
About
And
my impression of it.
cool.
I want to be wrong.
I know. And here's
sadly,
the thing.
I don't think I am, but I want to
That's
be.
fine.
I want to think that we're better than that. That if
I
Malcolm
understand
was,
that. However,
if he was
just give me a
purple
second?
with horns, that he could have won.
Yeah, that's great. He wasn't purple with horns, although he did get endorsed by the Purple Army. And when you have Big Perp standing behind you,
well,
there's no limit to what you can do.
But
anyway, that's right. But in any case, here's the thing, and I think especially if we are people that have public voices in the left, right, then it is part of our responsibility to not say, like, to put all that crap behind us, like the I don't think he can win and the I don't think these people will vote for him. Like, we want better, more diverse candidates, and that's going to mean doing different things in terms of campaigning. And if we want people to see candidates for the progressives that they are, even if they didn't support Bernie Sanders. And I know that that is a deep, dark sin. However, we still have to try to shift that focus to who the candidate is, to the positions that they support, and stop making assumptions about what people will or will not vote for. Because frankly, if we continue to do that, we're going to get a lot more of Connor Lamb and a lot less of John Fetterman. You know what I'm saying? So like, let's maybe not do those. Jordy has a thought.
Well, yeah, I mean, I feel like about 7 really important topics have come up, and I'm not sure I'm be the most responsive to whatever was the most recent one, but Jillian, something you said that I really agree with is, right, don't want to put any words in your mouth, but like the language and the talking about, for example, electability. You didn't say electability, but I hear electability a lot of times, and I get very uneasy about electability, especially when people are talking about rural areas, because I'm like, what do you mean? Like, it's really hard to know what electable is, and is that just a proxy for you're assuming your neighbors are racist, or maybe you are a little bit, you know? And so that's kind of what you, is that part of what you're saying? Like we need to, like, I think Malcolm could have won. Like, I think he could have been a viable statewide candidate, and the very sentence, not a viable statewide candidate, doesn't sound good. So I think I agree with you on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the idea of electability is one that is just inherently flawed. It's deeply subjective. And like, it's something that I made a rather long Facebook post several years ago that I frequently reshare about the fact that like, we don't all have the same kind of access to the way that people see us. And that's all part of electability. Like, it's, you know, this idea of authenticity is often what it's all about. And like, we don't all have access to that.
It actually,
you know, just
I think,
based on gender, race,
Sorry.
etc.
Chuck,
So-
go ahead.
Yeah, if I could jump in. So I'm friends with Malcolm. You know, I lived in Center City, Philadelphia the last 4 years before moving out here. We interacted quite a bit on texting, Facebook. And when he came out for Biden right out of the gate, I said, wait, why are you supporting Biden when your values much more closely aligned with Bernie's and your positions align with Bernie's? And guess what he said to me? Electability. Bernie's not electable. Biden is. And I kept pushing back and saying, yeah, but that's not that clear at all at this point in the game. At least, you know, give him the benefit of the doubt early on in the primary process. He may catch fire. And in fact, you know, Biden was lagging for quite some time there. And, you know, it was the president who came riding to the rescue behind the scenes, you know, that put it all together for Biden to get the nomination coming out of the Super Tuesday South. But you know, Malcolm was actually making that very argument that Bernie was not electable, and I kept pushing him, and that's what he just kept coming back to. So,
yeah, listen, Malcolm is not a perfect human. He's wrong about that. Like,
yeah.
I mean, I don't know what to tell you.
I actually, you know, said to people, if you want to paint Malcolm as like just a kind of firebrand progressive, you should look at his Biden decision as one that shows a politician who understands, and I think it's an art of balancing your ideals and being pragmatic, you know. So but I also, I mean, we may disagree on this, Chuck. I don't worry a lot about who people endorsed. I don't know. It's just not, it's not super important to me. I don't worry a lot about like, I'm not going to judge Malcolm's like how good he might be as a senator, as a progressive, based on who he endorsed in 2020.
Oh, look, I have a great deal of personal and professional good feeling toward Malcolm. I think he's a very good dude. I think he's very smart. He's very articulate. I believe he believes what he does in his issues. I think that there's a certain point, you know, in Philadelphia in Philadelphia politics, where you make certain decisions to be on the side of the establishment, as it were. And I think that was probably a calculation. I think that was probably the same thing happening with people like Dan Frankel out in Pittsburgh, you know, endorsing Steve Irwin. So I get that. I don't, you know, I'm not judging him harshly here. I'm just saying that you know, he was attempting to make the argument that electability was not an issue in his run, but that it was an issue in the presidential. That's, you can't square that up.
I mean, I think on a personal level, either you believe that electability is an issue or you don't believe that electability is an issue. So whether he made an argument or not, it's not particularly relevant. But yeah, like that's not okay. And we should stop it. And frankly, I hope if we can get like anything out of this primary, and well, first of all, I hope that we have gotten candidates that are going to win. But second of all, I hope that we can get that. Let's just can it with that noise. Like,
Fair enough.
yeah, like, and I don't mean just you, Chuck. I mean like everybody in Pittsburgh. I mean all these people in Philadelphia. Like,
He's
Lord,
been there.
the whooping that fake Democrat in Philadelphia, Giordano, got by Liz Fiedler was bliss. I love that. So I think like step by step, I think we see some of these machines like really losing their power.
Yeah.
To
in favor
beg
of
off
other people.
to try to build off of Jordy's complaint about the national view on local things, let's try to do it in a positive way. Floor, everyone. I know Jordy had his hand up, so maybe I'll jump to you first, but not trying to do exactly what Jordy was complaining of, and I think he's right to complain about it, by the way. What did the primary in the Commonwealth yesterday tell you about the state of both parties, about where the parties are along the ideological spectrum, or possibly even the pragmatic, I was going to say pragmatical, but I think it would have been making up a word, on the scale of pragmatism? Where do you think the parties are?
Well, I'm going to misbehave as a guest, but I think just because I find the electability thing, because it comes up, I think actually one of my biggest concerns is it shifts all the time, right? So sometimes it's about what you think about how people vote for certain candidates in rural areas and race, and other times it's about another thing. And so often I find it's about people who are supposed experts trying to sort of condescend or dismiss other people's opinions by saying, well, that's not electable. So there may be some narrow situations where you want to talk about, and when things are clear, like especially early in a race, somebody be like, well, that person doesn't stand a chance because they're not electable, and it's early in a primary and there's a candidates. I'm like, well, why don't you wait and see where the chips fall before you decide that? Like the outcomes of a primary often say an awful lot about electability. So that's kind of my beef with it generally, and then how it's used in specific places. Like I think someone's referring to people from the corporate wing trying to use it to dismiss progressives. Like that's one way it's used as a I was about to make up a word, a bludgeon. But to try and get back to your question, I mean, it feels awfully early. I mean, maybe I'm chickening out, but like, I guess I thought the Senate primary would have been clearer. And I honestly didn't think McCormick would do as well as he did. So I guess one thing I would say is the kind of, the new alliance between the moneyed part of the party and the more moderate part. There's a saying, it's not your grandfather's Republican Party. I mean, maybe that still has some life in it. We haven't seen it since Trump, but maybe. I mean, I'm happy to be smacked around by people on this call.
It's not even Reagan's party. I think Reagan looks like a New Deal Democrat compared to this.
But if the dominant hypothesis is it's all about who gets the Trump votes, McCormick's showing I honestly don't know enough about all of the dynamics. So I don't think McCormick's strength supports the idea that it's all just about how Trumpy you can be.
Chuck, what do you think yesterday says, if anything, about the parties and where they stand currently?
Yeah, well, I'd actually like to hear Robert. I mean, I feel like I don't want Robert to be sort of marginalized here. I'd like to have his, your thoughts. I'd love to hear them, Robert.
I appreciate it, Chuck. Frankly, the Republican Party, they're living on fantasy island. You've got such a, to bounce off kind of what Jordy said, and it's the same in New Jersey. New Jersey, much smaller state, whole lots of us hanging out, and we've got two counties that are under the spell of all of the big lie and all of this, and nothing is going to change that. And I have not run into many Republicans who are, once again, I'm going to use fair-minded in relation to, they all they want to see is gas prices down below $2. They want things to be nice, and they will not go back and look at one of the biggest spokes in the wheel as to why we are just in such horrible economic condition. And it was Trump's very amateurish tax cut. Go to the pie chart. You're dropping from 33% to 21 or whatever that number. And there was nothing to come back. All he did was gave them the carrot, said, here, eat until you're done, because it's, as long as I'm around, nothing bad's going to happen. And people actually, I don't know if they embrace it or they're lying to themselves. So that's where my head is in relation, in very remedial terms, as far as what the Republican, where the party is, to answer Jeff's question. And it's all over Pennsylvania, Jersey, wherever you want to go. And I have to, I'm a registered Democrat. I speak to people who are Democrats, who are just scared to death about not so much, the election this year, but they're waiting for the final 2 minutes of the basketball game to see what's going to happen in 24. And I think the Democrats are, you know what? They're just kind of scratching their head and hoping right now, because unless they go back to addressing, nobody cares really about anything except the price of gas right now. As horrific as this leak of the draft of the Supreme Court opinion on abortion is, it's only going to make the real thinkers actually do what they will do on election day. So there's turmoil on both sides, and I got to tell you, to really answer your question, Jeff, I have no idea where either of them are right now.
I want to welcome in a new friend. She's been listening to last several episodes. We've been sharing each other's platform. That's wrong. Sharing on platforms. It's English, and I'm having trouble with it tonight. I'll get it. I'll get there before sometime right around 8:55. I should have this thing nailed, and then we'll get off at 9 o'clock. And that's Dr. Chinchilla Jonesia. We've been sharing shows in each other's places and so on, and I've been fortunate enough to get to know her a tiny bit. We continue to get to know each other better, and we will be kind of continuing to grow. I hope to talk about, share our programs in each other's spaces. And she does a tremendous amount of work in the criminal justice area, justice, fairness, justice reform, advocates for folks who have been incarcerated unfairly and incorrectly and unjustly and unlawfully, some in prison for 30, 40 years, and she fights on their behalf. And she is the host of her own program that airs 9:30 p.m. on Sundays. After ours, you get like a half-hour space after ours, a little chance to catch your breath, get your strength back together. Then she comes back. She was kind enough to have me on this past Sunday because we were both talking about, leading up into the primary. So I was lucky enough that she could give us a couple minutes tonight to share her thoughts along with the panel. I love panels because I tend to, I always talk too much, but then I try to step back and let the panelists have at it. So it's great to have her here. Doctor, thank you for being here. I wanted to open up just by asking a general question of what were your thoughts or takeaways, surprises, disappointments, whatever it might be, just your general ideas about the PA primary from yesterday. Have at it.
Okay, hi. Thank you so much for having me tonight, Jeff. Well, as I shared with you earlier, I have been totally knocked down for the past few days, working 24/7 on these wrongful convictions. My body just shut down. So I am just really finding out who won in the election because I haven't done anything, but looking at the winners, I am totally blown away by a few of them. With Dr. Oz, number one. And I don't think that race has yet been called with him and the other guy. They're like neck and neck. But that kind of blew me away with Dr. Oz. I'm really totally shocked. We all know that he's very popular from his Dr. Oz show. But as far as having any type of political background, I think that's really a shame that he is like neck and neck with the other guy. I really am not pleased with that. And with the way that's going, if he actually winds up being the winner, it could say a lot for the November election, because then he'll be facing Fetterman in November. And that could be a race that could be pretty interesting. Of course, John Fetterman won. He was the front runner for the Democrat Party, and he is the winner. And he won by a long shot. And with him winning, the way he ran his campaign, he concentrated mostly on the legalization of marijuana, which a lot of Pennsylvanians now, they're like totally gung-ho on wanting marijuana legalized in this state. And his campaign basically centered around that. He also had Dennis and Lee Horton. The Horton brothers were wrongfully incarcerated for 28 plus years. He had them as his campaign people. They fought hard for him, campaigning for him and everything. And so he won. And the other races, as we all see and know, people that lost, that should not have lost, but they did. And it's so unfair that, in this state, we don't really take issues to heart that we really need to take to heart when people are campaigning, listening to their speeches and what they stand for. But yet so many people that oppose them, they don't get out and vote. And this is what happens during the primaries. When people don't get out and vote, certain people will be elected because their supporters are going to get out there and vote for them to make sure they're elected. So we have to do better as citizens of Pennsylvania to get the vote out and to vote in every primary election. So that way, when November comes, hey, we'll be voting for our candidate that we elected during the primary. But if we don't get out and elect anybody during the primary, our candidate that we would like to see win won't win. And, it's so unfair. And, how do we get people to really get out and vote during these primaries? That's a challenge that we have to try to fix. And, I'm just going to sit back and listen to everyone else, and I'll chime in now and then. I'm still recovering from a 104.8 fever and a dull headache for the past 3 days. So I'm going to sit back and listen to everybody tonight.
Well, thank you for taking the time to be here no matter what. I know you've been battling it, and I think you were still battling it Sunday night too.
Yeah.
It's not COVID, correct?
No.
Well, that's
no. It was
all right,
stress. It was a tension headache, and because I just I just overwork myself all the time.
Right.
And so I just became so overwhelmed and my body just shut down. And sometimes, you know, if you don't take time out for yourself, God has a way of knocking you on your behind to make sure you get some rest. And so that's what he did for me.
Well, I'm still very grateful that you were here, and I you know, I sense a building partnership here, and it means a lot that you took the time to come here. You know, again, hang out. We're, you know, it's a panel discussion. Jump up when you're ready.
Okay.
Chuck, I was kind of thinking, I guess when I asked my question, I was kind of thinking along the lines of Mr. Fetterman, because he has done, you know, he has done a lot for cannabis legalization. He has done a lot for criminal justice reform and putting folks who've been released from prison, who've served their time, on the parole review board. I might have that wrong. I might have the wrong body. Parole review board. I think maybe I'm right. I'm working from memory. He has done the pardons. Thank you, Jordy. Thank you on the pardons. But so does that, and he won this primary going away. You know, it's always been my contention that the party at the ground levels, the local levels, the street levels, house to house, literally precinct to precinct, is a lot more progressive than the structure of the party, especially higher up, gives it credit for. Does Mr. Fetterman's election, not just that he won the primary, but how, by how much, does that fill in that point to you at all, or am I just completely off base?
He certainly, you know, portrays himself. There's a lot of background noise here. So I'm in the airport, Dr. Chinchilla. That's why you hear some buzz. But he comes across as a populist. I mean, this is the way he's cast himself, his image, the tattoos, the way he dresses, the self-deprecating humor. He doesn't come across as slick, you know. He doesn't come across as polished. He comes across as somebody who cares about Pennsylvanians. That's the image that he casts, and I think the Democratic Party could learn a lot from his imaging or self-imaging or branding, because the party is now seen by rank and file Democrats and Americans as kind of tone deaf and out of touch, and not really dealing with people at the ground level, as you put it. So to answer your question straightforward, yeah, I think Fetterman really tapped into something. He practically doubled the vote over Connor Lamb. That's astonishing. I mean, Connor Lamb had the backing of the party establishment. He had the money. He had the mayor of Philadelphia on his side. And yet Fetterman walked away with the election. I don't know if there was any sympathy that went with him when he had that stroke, or if that made any difference whatsoever. But I think what he did is he really tapped into something, a vein, where the Democratic Party needs to sit up and pay attention to the fact that they seem to lack a heart, they seem to lack a soul. And Fetterman comes across, projects an image of somebody who does have a heart and does have a soul. You can disagree with them on a number of issues, things he's done, but he does come across as authentic. And that's something the Democratic Party has really lost touch with.
8 p.m., 8:01, actually, to be honest. This is a special edition of the Kennedy Effect. We are live. It is Wednesday, the 18th of May, 2022. Wherever you might be across the Facebook universe, about 100 places, nearly. I think nearly, just came up shy there. About 100 places we have shared the program this evening. Wherever you might be, stay where you are, enjoy, listen, have dinner, get the kids ready for school tomorrow, whatever, dodge the raindrops if you're Jordy. Wherever you might be, please feel free to listen exactly where you are. If you would like to take part in the chat that is going on right now, you may join us at our home group Facebook page, That Other Side of Information. That Other Side of Information. You can be part of the conversation that's going on right now. Hot101.net, our name is our web address. It is hot101.net. Apple App Store, Google Play Store for Android, and the TuneIn Radio app. You can find us there. You can also tell Alexa, which is my new favorite game show. You can tell Alexa, hey, Alexa, play hot101.net. One of these days, somebody listening to my program is going to say you triggered my Alexa, and I'm going to be childishly happy with myself. I'm going to giggle with excitement that I actually did such a thing. And also TCP, the culture professional from Lancaster, PA. I was planning to open the phone line later in the program. We may yet still do that, but again, you can get to us in the chat. Ask a question, agree, disagree. I'm already receiving some stuff in the chat, some conversation in the chat. Please feel free to do so. If you have questions, you can put them there too. If you have anything that you want to ask the guests, you can tell me there. You can tell me that as well. I will do that. So let's just, the chat is there and open for you wherever I will ask you questions. Anything that gets in there that you want to interact with, we can do that. So Jillian, it's a scary place to go, but bouncing off of what Chuck said about our party, what do you think yesterday says about the Republicans in PA, if anything?
You know, it is really hard to say. I think it's a very confused moment. It feels a little bit like Republicans are in, dare I say it, disarray. I don't know what an appropriate R word would be for that, because I know that the alliteration is a big part of it, but yeah, Republicans in disarray. I mean, to the point that, like, you know, they had so many candidates, and honestly, we got to the end of the night and I'm waiting around for every election night. I am briefly on the phone with WRTA, our local talk radio, and which I don't know why I do that to myself. But before I got on, somebody was like, oh, this is the person that's pulled ahead for lieutenant governor on the Republican side. And I was like, I have literally never heard of that person.
You know what?
And
I don't even know who ended up winning.
Calaroso or something, Stephanie Calaroso. I don't know.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, even like when I went on with John McGinnis and John Eichelberger, yes, put me up for sainthood. They were like, yeah, I don't think we talked to her at all. I don't think she's been around here. I don't really know anything about her. And so I think it's a confusing moment for the Republican Party, because when you have like seasoned, like been in the game for a long time Republicans saying that they don't know that much about the candidate who ultimately ended up winning that race, I think that tells us a lot.
Do you think money, generally speaking, there are individuals that we can point money to? You mentioned Summerlee earlier. Do you think money, generally spread across, had the effect in this primary on either side of the spectrum that it does occasionally? I think there are examples where maybe it did, but it seems to me that money kind of got defeated.
I would agree with that, I think, because maybe it was the effect of having so many candidates, and you know, there were certainly several that had like pretty big money behind them, that it all sort of, it diluted the effect to some extent. Is what I've got, really.
Jordy, go ahead. I can see it.
No, I don't, it's probably, you know, I haven't had a chance to see that much about how the money was spent. I just want to shout out, I love that Jillian brought that up, because the Dems in disarray is like the overused media narrative. And like, now I take it as personal mission to find like a great, like, you know, I was already looking at thesaurus.
I'm not looking at thesaurus.com, just in case. There's no R words.
There's no, but maybe there's something with a P. I don't know. There's got to be a great phrase. So, you know, you know, we need that. But you know, how much does money matter? I haven't seen as much of that. I mean, I do want to go back to something. This was like 2 or 3 months ago, and maybe one of somebody here on the call knows. one of the big, I think it was one of the Commonwealth Foundation, one of their PACs or something made a big hoo-ha about how they were going to endorse somebody after an internal contest. And I don't know who it was. And I would love to know. Oh, yes. Yes. Can we just pause? Jillian has solved the word problem.
Republicans unraveled.
That is beautiful.
There it is.
Can I steal it?
Yeah.
The
Can I
title,
credit? I mean, I'll credit
Use
you.
it, share it.
Yeah.
it's the title of her fourth book.
Yeah. Right. But didn't the I don't remember, it's Commonwealth Partners Fund something. Didn't they have a straw poll, or they were going to endorse somebody in the Senate and they were going to throw all this money, and it was supposed to resolve this problem for them? I think actually,
Yeah.
Jeff, I'm unwilling, I'm getting back to your question, but that was going to be like the money's going to solve this. And maybe I should go Google it now that I'm going to shut up and find out, because I don't remember who won it, but now I'm curious.
Chuck, what do you think? You mentioned the money that was spent in Summer Lee's race, and it was a race that MSNBC spent a lot of time on last evening and again this morning. But yet that money was overcome. What do we learn from that? What do we take away from that? Not even specifically Democrats, but just people, voters, residents, legal voters. What do they take away from that? What do we learn as a community or a society from that, as a Commonwealth?
Well, as far as the campaign specifically, I mean, I was part of the ground game for Summer Lee. I mean, we were knocking doors, and Steve Irwin's folks were not knocking doors. I mean, we had a ground game. You can't win without a ground game. You can't win without meeting people face to face. It's by far the most effective. I mean, people have studied this, right? That it's at least twice as effective as texting, 5 times as effective as commercials and TV and emails and all that stuff. You can touch somebody's soul. You can touch somebody's heart when you're talking to them face to face. And I was able to do that. It's a very empowering thing, I think, both for the canvasser and the person being canvassed. So Irwin had no ground game. He had all the establishment basically all behind him, except for the mayor, Gainey, Pittsburgh, and a handful of state reps, including Sarah Innamorato, who's very close with Summer. But it really came down to the ground game. And I mean, what it says about the Democratic Party is that the Democratic Party needs to go back to doing ground game. I mean, this is my heart and soul. This is what I have done for 50 years, basically, is ground game politics. And you can't simply win by going on the air and telling people through a box or through a screen or even through a radio, what to think and how to think. You've got to touch people. And until the party gets back to those basics, it's not going to be listening effectively. It's not going to be responding effectively. It's not going to be connecting effectively. So I hope that that's the message that the party gets certainly from Summer Lee's race, which is you've got to connect with people in the community or you're never going to win. You're never going to win. I mean, never on a consistent basis are you going to win. It's just going to be ping pong back and forth between every election, but you're not going to establish any sort of continuity of governance. You're not going to establish any continuity and build a majority here in Harrisburg. You've got to do the groundwork. There's no getting around it. There's no cutting corners. You've got to roll up your sleeves and get out there. And Fetterman did that more than any of the other candidates, I think. I know Malcolm got around the state quite a bit as well. I think Fetterman got to every county, if I'm not mistaken, but they both had a good ground game. Connor's ground game was pretty limited. There was almost the only presence he had in Philadelphia were people throwing up signs along the highways. It was like, that's not a ground game. So that's my takeaway. I think the Democrats really need to learn from that.
And he did actually win, or at least as of this morning. I don't think anything's changed that I'm aware of. Mr. Fetterman did win all 67 counties. So it wasn't just a huge percentage, that he pulled a huge percentage out of this particular area and that led to the overall. He took all 67 counties. That's not a small thing in my humble opinion. Yes, Jordy.
Well,
Uh-oh. Cars.
Car going by.
I feel like we're playing ball in the street. Car.
I wanted to go back to something about John Fetterman, and I mean I do think that he's in terms of him beating so soundly Lamb. I mean part of it is Lamb was really relatively late coming into it. I mean, John Fetterman has been planning a statewide run since, I don't know, 2014, 2016. He ran for Senate in 2016. Is that right? But he's had a long time to build up his, and he's been, really good at building up a very particular brand image about him. And I do think it's trying to tap into a kind of populism. And it's, when I look at what his campaign was about, I don't think it's that much. Connor Lamb's was overtly trying to get legacy Democrats and Republican switchovers. And that was his argument, to me at least, seemed. And I think John Fetterman's is about expanding the electorate in a similar, look, to me, both Kenyatta and Fetterman were running on a theory of I will win by expanding the electorate in key ways, but they were different parts of the electorate. And I mean, I personally think that's a great thing. And the 67 county strategy is always kind of my love language for any candidate. But I do think about Fetterman, I mean, not that I was applying for a job, but here I am going to blow it out of the water. He needs to friggin' apologize for the jogging thing. Like, that is just an albatross around his neck. It's like crisis communications 101. He has made it such an issue by digging in and being defensive. And he was the mayor of Braddock. Great. I think he kind of oversells that, and he's really vulnerable because it's not that big of a place. I'm in local governance. The mayor is technically the top law enforcement person, but it doesn't mean you have any training to ride around with a shotgun in your car. I mean, he's just like hitting all the wrong notes. And I don't really know Philly politics. I don't live there. So it's kind of, it's like a whole complicated, important thing. But I just think he needs to really build some bridges. He needs to maybe humble himself a little bit. And I'm a little worried because he seems so thin-skinned about this. Biden was really thin-skinned about his votes. I think it was on busing or whatever about Delaware. And this reminded me of that. And Kamala Harris took him to the woodshed. And I think it made him a better candidate. And it's certainly, I think, in my estimation, made me appreciate Biden more when he brought Kamala Harris on. I don't know what the equivalent is maybe for Kenyatta and Fetterman, but I really think Malcolm Kenyatta did. Assuming Fetterman will win, it will be because he handles this better, and the way he handles it, I think, will mean a lot to a lot of voters, and especially African American voters. And I don't know what it is, but like, he needs to do something about it, right? Because it is wide open for the GOP to make some marginal gains in Philly on this issue. Pay Kathy Barnett a certain amount of money to run around and as the Black person, as a trusted messenger on the jogging incident.
Doctor, what are your thoughts on that?
I think I agree with is your name Jordy?
Jordy.
Yeah, it's Jordy.
Okay.
Yeah. Hi, nice to meet you.
Hi, nice to meet you too. I agree with what he just said. Definitely. Come November, as I said before, it's going to be a race that it's going to be very interesting. That's all I can say about that. It's going to be very interesting. But what I do want to say, back to talking about Dr. Oz again. I can't stop talking about Dr. Oz. Dr. Oz, he was is a heart surgeon, and it's just very ironic that Fetterman, during election night, that he was in the hospital from a stroke, and he had a pacemaker installed. So I just find that very kind of weird. An election night, this happens to him, and Oz is a heart surgeon. I'm not mean that to be funny, but it is kind of funny, but it's sad.
Like
that
odd timing.
Very odd timing.
Funny.
Very
strange
and
timing.
it is very strange. And I wish him a speedy recovery from that. And it's such a sad situation. But yeah, the Democrat Party definitely are going to have to up their antes and do better as a party, and really stand behind their candidate and really campaign very hard. When we look at Josh Shapiro, he put a lot of money. I think they said he had the highest amount of money into his campaign. So he had so much money put into his campaign. He was running unopposed, but yet he put all that money out for his campaign. And, hey, and so in November, he'll be the Democratic candidate for governor. And Mastriano, oh gosh, that's a nightmare. We talked about that Sunday. Um, and look, hey, he won. And it's a shame that he's the Republican nominee. And he's also, of course, being investigated for the January 6th bombarding of the Capitol, of the White House. It's such a sad thing, but yet he won. I mean, how does this happen? Really, even the Republicans that know that what he did was wrong, but yet they still voted for him. And I just don't get that.
I don't
It
think-
would be my guess that the percentage of the Republican base that voted for him
Mhm.
doesn't think that what he did was wrong. That's the
Right.
whole point.
Yeah.
And I had this discussion with a friend over the weekend because we were discussing the possibilities / probabilities that he would be the nominee, and is that really the guy that Democrats want to run against, and so on and so on and so on. And again, I could be way off. I'm just one person. I see what I see, and lots of people see different other things. I think he's exactly who you want to run against, because I don't see him. He'll win 100% of his base. I don't think his base is big enough. Again, I think you're looking at folks that might still be fiscally conservative. They might even still consider themselves Republicans. I think there's a lot of self-identified Republicans. I don't know how many real ones are left, because they don't think the party's even a functioning political party at this point. It's a corporation. But yeah, he's going to win that base. Absolutely. But I don't, again, similar, not exactly the same, but similar to Mr. Fetterman. I don't know if there's that sizable group of non-affiliated or independents. Did they swing to a man who was part of the insurrection, who has said, if I don't like the results of an election when I'm governor, I just won't certify it? Not to mention women's bodily autonomy and health and right to privacy, and what's going to happen to schools in this Commonwealth. I just don't see it. Again, I could very well be wrong. I'm wrong a lot, a whole lot. Kristen will tell you how much I'm wrong. I'm wrong a lot. But
Jeff, Donald Trump was our president for 4 years.
Yeah, and he ran on
Did you
Bernie
forget
Sanders.
that?
And he ran on Bernie Sanders' platform. I think yes, he did. He ran on tariffs. He ran on better health care. He ran on massive
He ran
investments.
on racism, Jeff.
He sure did. That was absolutely part of it. And the people in the middle took a bite on a bunch of the other crap.
I'll agree that if you listen to just some of the
Mr.
notes in Trump's
Mastriano isn't
song-
a game show host.
but Roca, if you listen to some of Trump's notes in the 2016 campaign, like, yes, there were some populist notes that were similar to Bernie's, but if you listen to the whole song, it's not like just Bernie. But I want to go back to something else. Now I forgot it.
So
It'll come to
listen,
you.
I want to say this, and I want to really caution, because Doug Mastriano is a nut job. Let us just say that. But here's the thing. This is a person who, we talked about John Fetterman. You mentioned John Fetterman has been, building this statewide race for a while. Doug Mastriano may have started with AstroTurf Facebook groups, but those are real people now. And what he is building is a terrifying Christian nationalist movement. And I understand that, listen, if you ask somebody, even a Republican, right? If you ask a sort of reasonable Republican that you can get along with, would you vote for a Christian nationalist? They would say no, right? But here's the other thing is a lot of people don't want to talk about what that means. They don't want to admit that that's what they're willing to vote for, just so that they don't have to vote for a Democrat. And so this is something that we have to be incredibly careful about I'm not saying that you're dismissing it, but like it gets into a territory where people start to dismiss it out of hand, and we
I'm
have to be
not in
serious. And to
any way,
Chuck's
shape,
point-
or
no,
form
I know
dismissing
you're
it.
not.
I
and
just
said you
don't
weren't.
think the base is big enough. I also think he's a motivating
But-
factor for folks on the left
But Jeff,
to
I
come
mean,
out and vote.
I haven't seen all the numbers, but you know, the Republicans have been registering more people than Democrats for many years in a row. I was looking at crunching. I wasn't crunching that. Well, it's sort of crunching, but anyway, you know, this is a whole bigger conversation. But I don't think I realized it. The shift in people who were registered Democrat and vote Democrat, which meant a very different thing in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, right? But it has been happening. There are so many fewer Democrats in the rural counties. And a lot of those people have been switching to Republican. Like when you look at the Department of State's party switching statistics, the net gains of people who switch into Republican from Democrat far outpace into Democrat from Republican. So that like great migration, I don't know what to call it, has been happening. And I want to go back to something Jillian said. I'd be curious about Blair County, where I am in Union County, where I live. So many, not just Mastriano signs, like homemade, all kinds of stuff. Like, and I know yard signs don't win, but like the guy was a military officer.
But it's an indication, right? Yeah.
It is an indication. Is it like that in Blair County too?
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
Yeah. So, well, I didn't know if he had particular big fans in Union County.
Oh, well, yeah.
So if I were Shapiro's campaign manager, I would much rather have faced Lou Barletta or Gordon Sweeney. Like I will unequivocally say that.
Well, why do you think the National Party and the moneyed interests that supply so much of the money to the RNC came in against Mastriano?
Because
they didn't want to deal with that, because Mastriano is also kind of, you know, an egomaniac. But that's what they've got now. And what we have to face is they're not going to stop putting money into Pennsylvania.
Right.
And so
They
that's what we have to
right.
be worried about.
Yeah.
I agree.
Go ahead, Chuck.
Well, I mean, you know, the Republican establishment resisted Trump until they got Trump. I mean, they're gonna.
And
they're
Chuck, they did so much to resist him once he was in office. I mean, it was tremendously
Yeah.
encouraging to see all the right, the
Spot on.
strong-willed Republicans who were like, never
Right.
Trump, like Lindsey Graham. I mean, I was so
Yeah.
inspired by the way he lived up to
Mhm.
his ideals.
Rock hard backbone.
right.
Right.
So
Right.
the
The
other
second,
thing
the supposed second coming of John McCain, Lindsey Graham. Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
this is sort of my bête noire. This is my big issue these days. Is we've got to stop calling Republicans conservative and pro-life.
There is another
Patriotic.
F word.
Stop it. Stop it. What exactly is conservative about what they're doing? They're a party of violence. What is pro-life about violence? Honestly, we have to change our lexicon here. And I hear almost everybody falls into this trap of using the word conservative. Conservatism is dead. It's dead. Let's bury it and talk about what it actually is: fascism. And fascism is the confluence of state corporatism, religious nationalism,
Mhm.
and white supremacy, and all the other bad ideologies that spill out of that. So I really, this is my top of the mountain talk that I'm just going to keep saying over and over again. We've got to correct the way that we talk about this political party, which is a cult.
Doctor, when you're doing your program, I know that sometimes you focus on different, like non-political issues, if you will, if that's the right word for it, or the right phrase for it. Do you hear this from your listeners? Maybe not a fear of what's coming at them, but concern. Maybe concern's a better word, of what Chuck is talking about. That Republicans have turned into the party of violence, of division, of hate, of the other, a fascist party, a corporatist party. Power and money, power and money, power and money. I'm remembering, thank goodness, Chuck reminded me of it without knowing that he did so. I thought one of the most powerful quotes from President Biden's speech in Buffalo yesterday was that we cannot become a nation guided by lies. I'm butchering it, but guided and accepting of lies from people who want nothing other than power and money. And I was so thrilled he finally said money, because it's always, for me, it's not simple, but everything that comes out of the right at some point comes down to money. Whether it's watch the shiny object while we rip money from you, wealth extraction, which is being hoisted on us as inflation, it's wealth extraction. You know, if we're all violent and tearing each other up, we're not watching our pockets being ripped and emptied. Do your listeners share with you the same kind of concerns that Chuck just talked about? Do you hear that?
Yeah, I hear that a lot. You know, I did a show once called Power. What was it? Power, Propaganda, and Politicians, something like that. Where I called it the triple P's. And, you know, we talked a lot about politicians, you know, with the power play, and we talked about the money, and we talked about, as Chuck said, we talked about them being white supremacists. And, you know, because this is what we see a lot. And I have so many families, you know, that come on talking about their wrongfully incarcerated loved ones, about their loved ones who've been in prison since the age of 15 and 16 and are still behind bars at the age of 45 and 50. And, you know, all that has to do with what we call modern day slavery. And the modern day slavery, of course, is our prison system as we know it today. And the prison system is so horrible. And who controls it? Of course, the politicians and, you know, mainly the Republicans. They're, you know, controlling that industry. And there's so much money that's being funneled into these prisons. And they keep the prisoners in prison for extensive amount of time, even when their sentencing is over. They still keep them behind bars because they're making money off of them. And it's so sad, but this is what we see all the time, and it has to stop. And, you know, we're going to have to do things to make sure it stops. But if we continue to put the wrong people in office, it's not going to ever change because they don't want it to change. But we have to be the voices of change and to fight for justice in these areas that we're talking about now. And when we look at the Republican Party, they, of course, they want control of everything. They want to have total power, total control, and they don't really care who they step over to get that control and that power and to maintain that power and control. They'll do whatever it takes. And that's dangerous. It's very dangerous. It's very scary when we look at that, because what is that saying for America? If we have a political party that's willing to do in and everything to get ahead of the next party and to win. And that makes me think about this criminal injustice system where we look at wrongful incarcerations, where you have prosecutors that will do anything to get a win. They will put an innocent person behind bars just so that they can have another win under their belts. And then they put wrongfully incarcerated people behind bars because of racism. So a lot of these prosecutors are racist, and people don't want to look at it that way, but they are. Because if we look at the wrongful convictions in this country, most of them are against Black and brown people. And so that says a lot too for this country. Like, we're still a country that's very racist.
And in many of those locations, as you well know, I don't need to tell you this, but I'd like you to talk about it if you could, because since we're talking about an election, once you're either behind bars or have that on your record, you lose your right to vote.
Yeah. And now I think they came up with something. I think, I know last week, someone told me that they can vote now. They were able to vote in this election. So I'm not sure how true that was. I see Jillian, is it Jillian or Gillian?
Jillian.
You're
Yeah,
shaking
there's
your head, yes.
conditions. It's like, it's kind of state by state though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm not sure if it was Pennsylvania that they were allowed to vote in this election. Now, I'm not sure how many of them knew that or if they even voted, but that's something else that needs to change. We're in this country that the inmates, they should be able to vote because they're still using them in their numbers in these different counties and different cities. And, with the redistricting and all of that, I don't know if that changed anything or not, but with that was supposed to help get the inmates to actually be able to vote in the county or city that they actually lived in before being being incarcerated or wrongfully incarcerated. So with that being said, I'm not sure if that actually went into play for this election or not. Does anybody have any information on that?
I have a little bit, and I'm going to put the link in. And Jeff, you should maybe have her on sometime. You might know Jenna Henry, but she just recently started working for the Penn Enfranchisement Project. So it's like Penn Enfranchisement. So I was just scanning their report, and they're really focused on county jails. So I'm guessing here, but like there are a lot of people who get caught up in the system before trial. They're not convicted. They can still vote, and there's a lot of votes. A lot of them are being disenfranchised. So I think that maybe Dr. Chinchilla, if I said that right, I hope so. Okay, good. That may be part of maybe what you heard, right? That these are people, they're not convicted, but they, and a lot of them, it's actually really problematic that they're being denied their rights to vote. So I put the link here to their report. It's upwards of 30,000 people in Pennsylvania, I think they said, who are in that situation. And I may have stepped on this, and other people probably know more, but a lot of people spend a inhumane amount of time just in county jails, just waiting for their judicial processes to move forward. But like, I think people on the outside who don't know this kind of assume, well, they're in jail, so they must have done something wrong.
Right.
In the Facebook chat, Mike Laws, vice chair of the Pennsylvania Democratic Black Caucus, honored to have him listening, thankful he's listening. I'm thankful everybody listens, but I'm always thankful when Mike is here. Tells us in the chat, as long as they are not felons, they can vote in Pennsylvania. Good to know. Let's I don't want to get too deep into it, but let's remember too that Florida passed that constitutional amendment to allow ex folks who had served their time, paid, quote unquote, paid their debt to society, that they would regain their vote. It was a ballot initiative that passed, I believe it was upwards of 70% in a red state. And then the state government, the Republican controlled government, just kind of didn't like that. So for all intent and purpose, ignored the will of the people. At least we're a tad bit ahead of that here. Go ahead, Chuck. Oh, you have to go. Is that what that is? You're boarding?
Yeah, I got to head to the gate. Great to catch up to you all. And it'll be an exciting rest of the year. Keep fighting. Look forward to catching up to you soon. Nice to meet you, Dr. Chinchilla. I hope you feel 100% real soon.
Thank you so much, Chuck. Nice to meet you too.
Take care.
Thank you, Chuck, for being here, especially live mobile from an airport.
Fort Lauderdale Airport.
From the Fort Lauderdale.
Oh, wow.
Did he
See how important rural broadband is?
Did he say he was going Philly, Fort Lauderdale, Texas? That's like,
He was going Philly, Lauderdale, Denver.
oh, Denver.
But it, you wonder why things are so expensive, why air travel is so expensive. How's he going to Lauderdale for? Can you just fly direct around this country? It's 2022, for God's sake. I mean, can't we just fly? If you can fly from Newark, New Jersey, Newark Liberty, direct to Hawaii and Australia, I think you can get from Philly to Denver. Good Lord, what are we doing in this country? Sometimes it's unbelievable.
That's the eternal question. What are we doing?
Yeah, well, unless we're generating wealth, it's
Jeff, if you'll indulge a quick sidebar, it may have changed, but like where I live, Newark is often the airport that's the easiest to get to for like longer flights. And I actually loved that for a long time. Newark was like an airport that reminds me of like 70s airports, like there's only one newsstand. There's not a food court. Just suck it up, right? Like it was this kind of ugly concrete, I don't know how to describe it. And I just love that it was always like, I just felt like it was like in a 70s movie. I think they tried to upgrade it all, but like at least for a certain time, I was just
Newark's
like,
a lot
just
better.
just own. Oh, really? It's like just own
Yeah,
that this
it's
is
a
a
lot better.
crappy airport. It's cheap and it's okay. It's a lot better. Oh well. I
I
have
would
my
say though,
memories.
just this
have
is a
my memories.
sidebar, but it's an interesting one. I would say because Kristen actually just went to an economic conference at the Kalahari Resort put on by East Stroudsburg University, and they were talking about rail. I know we're really speaking of going off the rails. Let's talk about rails. As it stands now, just to drive, just to hop in your vehicle and drive from the Lehigh Valley. I need to fly wherever, because you can fly pretty much wherever from both airports. And I have to choose between Newark and Philadelphia. Newark is about 60 plus miles from here. Midtown Manhattan is somewhere in the 75 range. Philadelphia is only about 50. It's quicker and easier to get to Newark in New York City than it is to get to Philadelphia, even though it's less distance. I mean, that's, the conference she was at was talking about rail from Scranton through the Poconos in toward the city, and from the Valley east into New York and south into Philadelphia. And that's a big, it was just interesting that what she brought back from that, and my experience, especially driving, coming back here from Jersey and still having to do things in Jersey. It's easier just to get to Jersey than it is to get to Philadelphia. It's really pretty amazing to me. Just my 2 cents on a different topic. Let's talk about voter turnout a little bit. Most of the reports I got from friends, again, nothing scientific, but just from friends around the Commonwealth, is that just the turnout was very disappointing. Is that your experience? What does it tell us, if anything? Or is it just one of those, it's a midterm primary, nobody showed up? Do we have any thoughts about the actual voter turnout yesterday?
Do we
mean,
know
it
the number?
sucked. Yeah, I don't know the numbers yet, but like primaries often suck.
Do you
And
think
I
that
think
the
it's going to take us a
open,
long time to like fix that and some concerted effort.
do you think that the open seats should have provided a little more attention? And maybe that's why the new districts and so on, there were some open state house seats, there were open Senate seats. You had a US Senate primary in both an open seat, an open gubernatorial seat. I would have hoped that a turnout I think here in the Valley it was only in the 20s. I want to say 23%, but I may have that wrong. I would have hoped that interest in the open seats would have driven a little more voting. Any thoughts on it generally?
Yeah, I mean, I was trying to get the number. I poked around with this for something for the podcast barnstorming that I'm on.
I can barely dial my phone. Jordy's bringing up like advanced statistics a lot, like right in the middle of a comment.
I had already researched it. I made a quiz, which was like, I'm never going to be allowed to make a quiz again because they said it was too hard and boring. But I was like, which primary had the lowest turnout for Republicans and Democrats? And it was like around 14 or 16% for one for the other party. And the highest was way over 50 in presidential years. So I was actually, just to me, because I was geeking out, but the range was huge. So I don't know what it was yesterday, but if it was north of 20 or 25, that may be disappointing, but that's like maybe a little bit better than one would expect.
Yeah, actually, I would just like pulled up the unofficial results for Blair County just now because I was, since we asked, I was curious about it. I will say that than normal, so it was 42.63, which is actually pretty high for a primary.
Wow.
Yeah, I know, right? That's terrifying prospect. But Democratic turnout was 31.03, and that's like, I mean, like Jordy said, like 20-25% is suck, but also like that's more the norm for a primary, and so like 31% is an improvement.
Wow. I know in Center County, they had the highest turnout in the primaries in over 10 years. I think it was 34% or 30% of registered voters turned out. And for Democrats, it was, wait, I got the numbers right here, 34% of Democrats and 40% of Republicans turned out yesterday in Center County.
I mean, I will, something that Robert mentioned earlier, I don't know if we know yet, but of the role, the impact of the Roe v. Wade, most likely to be overturned. At least the canvassing work we're doing with Action Together, which we've been doing since early March, like that has become an issue people bring up spontaneously at pretty like from like almost not brought up at all to like maybe 20%, and mostly women, but not exclusively, like very fired up about it. So, will that continue to build as, let's assume that it's overturned in, I mean, I hope not, of course, but let's assume it's overturned in June. Some of the places I am, there've been spontaneous protests and rallies, which is always like kind of a leading indicator to me of people's political energy. If that can be sustained, if the different organizations that do this can really help those emerging people continue to build that. And also, I just also want to say, and not just use them, like I find it very frustrating when people are politicized or find their moment of agency around an issue. And then this happened in 2020, I think. And then the Democratic system as it is, the party's kind of like, great, now vote, and then nothing happens afterwards. But that's a longer complaint. But anyway, I think it could be a factor. I mean, that's just my intuition from seeing it. So maybe that didn't show up in the primaries, but I think it could affect turnout, especially Mastriano. Right? I think he's no exceptions, isn't he? Didn't he say that?
Yeah, he's very proudly no exceptions.
Oh,
and maybe that ties in.
you ladies aren't supposed to leave the kitchen, I don't think, under Mr. Mastrahano.
Never, not ever.
Yeah. Leslie
Probably
Altieri
mischief when we do.
Leslie was nice enough to let us know in the chat here on Facebook. Northampton County Democratic turnout was 30%. Republican turnout, 35%. And that's your bellwether county here in Humboldt, Northampton. As we get to 15 minutes left in the program, let me ask all of you if we could turn our gaze a little bit. It's extremely early to do so. Actually, wait, I'm going to ask Jillian one question first. Before we look ahead, there were also party elections in this primary. The primary for your party elections were your general election for all intent and purpose.
Correct.
I don't know how much you may have dived into the party elections throughout the Commonwealth. So my question might kind of fall flat, but if there's anything that you've learned about who got elected to state committee and who didn't, who's floating a name out for chair and who isn't, are you optimistic about change inside the party?
That I think is probably a little early to tell. I know that there are some people that have been kind of longtime members of state committee that did not make it through this time. And so I am not familiar with the people that did. And so a lot of that I think is going to shake out Did you? Good job. Awesome. Well, then I can't wait to see you at state committee.
I'm going to go get yelled at and try and learn a little more. I've been attending for a long time, but now I'm going to get on the other side of the rope.
You're going to be
so
in
I'm looking forwed to learning.
Welcome to the dark side. So Chuck Pascal unfortunately did not make it through. I am interested to learn about the gentleman that ran against him because Chuck was kind of a fixture. So not that I think that he'll leave us anytime soon. You can't get rid of Chuck Pascal, nor would we want to.
Whenever you want to. Even if you want to.
Even if you did want to, you couldn't get rid of him. But there are other other losses and gains. I think there was some change in the Allegheny County state committee members. So I kind of can't wait to see who all is there. I know a personal favorite of mine, Michelle Boyle, who is a nurse at Allegheny General. She ran for office a while back. A fantastic, amazing, unapologetic progressive is now in the Allegheny County delegation to state committee. So I take that as a good thing. I know a number of other like very progressive people got elected there, and so I think it's going to be interesting. I know. So, in terms of who's going to be state party chair, right?
Does that, can I ask you a question? Does that happen
Yeah.
at a meeting of the committee or?
Yeah. So just like for people that aren't aware of how it works, like everybody that was elected to state committee, so all of the elected state committee members and all of the newly elected county chairs are state committee. We will meet in June, and there will be a meeting. I don't know how many people it is.
Several hundred. I mean, 67.
Several hundred. It's up.
Hopefully.
It's over 400.
Yeah. And still not
so-
as many as there should be.
Yes, as a person who gets only one elected state committee member, yes, I would like more.
Also too large to be really called a committee, but okay.
Yeah, I mean, listen.
It's a Congress or something, but
Of sorts, yes.
That's how
and-
Kristen and I ran. That the state committee is your legislature inside the party. It
Yeah,
is
absolutely,
your-
100%.
That's we ran to represent. We ran for the opportunity, for the honor of representing, and that's kind of how I describe state committee. It's the legislature inside your party, and if you follow the federal constitution, the legislature usually has a hell of a lot more power and more say, and would seem to me that the legislature inside the party should follow that. And I hope that
Yeah, and I mean, I think, one of the things that I think is really, really, really important for state committee members, and I think the best state committee members from my perspective are those that are really involved on the ground in their counties, and involved in getting out the vote, in doing that, in phone calls, canvassing, like organizing, like that is the most useful thing. And also, it's a position where, you're able to get a sense of candidates at a much more personal level than most people have the opportunity to do. And there's all the behind the scenes gossip. Who doesn't love that? But yeah,
I don't.
Jordy, you don't? Ugh.
everybody loves the gossip. Come
Yes, you do,
on.
Jordy.
Jordy, just something. One of the biggest facts that, as Kristen and I and all of us who ran for state committee here in Northampton, especially through the petition process, generally speaking, you don't walk up to somebody on the street and get them to sign your petition. It's usually folks, you go to petition signing events, and it's usually folks that are engaged. They want to be there. They know there's a petition event. They go to it. They're engaged Democrats.
Yeah.
And I imagine it's the same on the Republican side. I honestly don't know, but I'm assuming it is. I probably shouldn't, but I'm assuming it is. It was remarkable to me how many engaged Democrats, active Democrats, did not know that they could attend a state committee just because they weren't elected to it. As long as you're a registered Democrat, you can attend. And I found that personally as a bit of a communication breakdown between the party and its folks on the ground. And I hope that, I hope more people do. I think it can only be a good thing to me if you go see how state works and get a little more. I mean, we know the voting is held to those in elected positions, and that's fine. But I just wish, I kind of wish more people went to it and saw how it functioned, and went to the different trainings and so on, and met candidates. But I also wish that the elected officials went more. When I was on the state committee in New Jersey, every elected, as soon as you were an elected official to anything, you were a member of state committee, and you better show up. And I wish
that actually.
Thank
sounds
God
like
we
too
don't
good.
have that.
Yeah, I was like, ugh.
so.
A little too much democracy.
Well,
I mean,
Like on my borough council, there's 8 of us, and sometimes I'm like, for 5,000 people. Wilkes-Barre, where I've been canvassing, has 45,000 people, and 5.
Well,
I mean, I actually think they have too few, but 8 for.
yeah, I mean,
whatever.
Jersey State Committee, we did. I mean, it didn't hurt. It was in Atlantic City, but Yeah, we would
can I
have
just,
5,000. We'd have 5,000 people there. Sure.
I think,
You got a hell of a lot of work done too.
just
blue
it's a
state.
cute, a quick little story. So I've been on my county committee. I'm not currently, and I've never been chair, never been state committee person, but I did go just as an elected Democrat in 2018 or 2019 for the first time. And my favorite moment was there's like a meeting of everybody, like a plenary or something, and they sang the Star Spangled Banner and then Lift Every Voice and Sing. And for like a group of hundreds of people, it was the best. I was like these are people who went to church choir. Like their singing was amazing, right? Like especially Lift Every Voice and Sing, you know, and of course there are a lot of African American people, but like but everybody. I was just like, it was like it touched my soul because I was like 400 people singing so well. I was like, wow, it's really cool.
Well, that meeting
Very few people know this, but you do have to pass a singing test before you can become part of state committee.
That's why I'm not running for state committee.
We're all classically trained. Now you know.
You wanted to know what the trainings were at state committee. There you go. It's vocal lessons.
There you go. Well,
There
that's
you
one of
go.
the good things that came out of COVID, actually, right? Is that I think a lot of people experienced this move towards Zoom, and even as we're back in person, some towards hybrid meetings. I know for my county, all of our meetings from here on out will be hybrid. So like you can come in person to the meeting, but like you can also come on Zoom. And so for most, if not all, I think of the trainings, that we do, which are called Deminars, like seminar, but Democrats, because we're cute like that.
Mhm. Clever.
Yeah, that's
Cheeky.
right. Will be available probably on the PA Dems website because they'll be recorded. So I think that's really good. You know I encourage people to like check out state committee whenever they can. And I think this like having to do things on Zoom has made it actually a lot more accessible to people, which is great.
We got about 6 minutes left. I want to go around the three of you. Predictions, thoughts of what's coming across the summer into the general election. Doctor, please lead us off.
Okay. I don't know. I really don't have any thoughts right now. I can't really think. But I do want to mention, however, for Philadelphia, for the voter turnout, is if that's okay. The voter turnout for Philly was very, very low. 20.30% of the voters turned out. And that's very, very low because in Philly, there's 1,048,790 voters. And there were 212,934 ballots cast, which is very low. And that's really sad. So my speculation for November, if we have that same voter turnout, which always in the general election, it's a higher turnout, of course, during the general election, but it's still never as high as it is for a presidential election. So we need to up those numbers of actual bodies coming out to vote, or if they want to vote by mail. But I would suggest, people get out and vote in person because mail ballots can always be lost. Okay. So it's best to vote in person. And that's my thoughts for the general election. We have to get out and vote and have a lot of people out on the ground canvassing, campaigning for the candidate of your choice. And there are so many different candidates in Philly for this time that didn't have enough people out on the ground canvassing for them. So I just encourage people to get out, get involved, and anybody can get involved with the campaign. If there's someone that's running that you're interested in winning, then get out, volunteer with their office, with their campaign manager, and they would love to have you come out and help them. Go out and canvass, knock on doors, and do what you need to do. But for heaven's sakes, get involved. We all need to be involved in the election process from start to finish.
Jillian, final thoughts going in through the summer, predictions if you want to make any. What do you see coming up in the next few months here in Pennsylvania?
I think everybody should take a breath while they can, because I hope you're ready to knock every single door that exists in this Commonwealth. Because and I will also say this, I don't like to make predictions in politics these days, but you know, this will work if we work for it. And if you are not willing to get out on the doors or make some phone calls or do some texts, or like, you're gonna have to put yourself out there and be a little bit uncomfortable. But this is an existential race for so many people.
We always, it's become almost a joke, hasn't it, Jillian, that like every election is like, this
is the most important election ever.
But my goodness.
But yeah,
I mean, it's
real and true.
A gentleman who's the nominee now on the Republican side for governor who doesn't want the government itself to even exist or function. And if he personally doesn't like the results of an election, then too bad for all the rest, for the other 12 million of us. Then the hell with that. I mean, if that's not existential and that doesn't make it an important election, then I don't know what does. Jordy, your final thoughts, please. We got about 2 minutes.
Sure. So I'll do some predictions. One, I think that a lot of ad consultants will make a lot of money especially on the Senate race, making and selling ads that are trying to get people to vote. And I wish that money would have been spent on things like what Jillian does. And I know what we do, because being in the field and building up capacity would be a far better use of that money. But that's another issue. I think Kathy Barnett is going to make a lot of money being a paid media consultant or something, a sort of paid surrogate to go around and attack John Fetterman. And I think that this is a little inside baseball, but I think especially the pandemic really threw some monkey wrenches in traditional, both Democratic Party and left progressive organizations, like what we can do. But I think that there's sort of, in a good way, they're sort of constantly evolving, like collective learning about how to use data, how to use best techniques. Chuck had mentioned earlier some of the numbers, which are about 20 years old now, about what works. But I think we're going to see, maybe we're going to start to see some gains back in strategic places on the left Democratic side around both voter registration and also voter turnout. That'll maybe start to win back some of those areas. And now I'm going to be hopeful. What I hope, and this is something that I hope we have a broad coalition for, like, Pennsylvania does suffer from hyperpolarization in the geographic areas that aligns with race, right? There are more Democratic voters in the two largest city areas, but we need Democratic leaders, whether they're from the rural areas or the urban areas, to create a politics that lifts us all up. And no matter where you're born or where you live, right, we can have a politics where we all lift each other up, and the freedom of people who are Black or brown or whatever in one place is not contingent on trying to get some certain votes in rural areas. Like, we need a politics that lifts us all up and imagines an economy where we all prosper, in a society where we're all free. And that's what I work towards, and I'm looking for campaigns and candidates that do that.
2 quickies before we say goodnight that makes me optimistic. Jamie McLeod Skinner is ahead in her race in Oregon over Kurt Schrader by, he will look at quickly, 61 to 39%. That makes me optimistic. Kurt Schrader, again, a Democrat in name, at least, who was key in torpedoing the legislation for Medicare to negotiate drug prices. And Charles Booker will be the Democratic nominee for the United States Senate against Rand Paul in Kentucky. You got it right, Kentucky Democrats. You should have done that last cycle. Charles Booker was a better candidate last cycle. And
Charles Booker?
Yep.
Oh, no relation to Corey.
Yep. And another quick thing that makes me optimistic about life generally in the United States. Occasionally we find these little nuggets to pick up on. Ashley Shea reminds me, because I did know this, U.S. Soccer reached a landmark decision with its national teams earlier today. the United States men's national team and the United States women's national football teams, by the way, because it's football, you kick it and play it with your feet, are now 100% on equal paid terms.
Today?
Yes.
Yay.
The women will make exactly what the men make. They are equally paid now. And oh, by the way, it's the women that have been winning all the World Cups. And
Yeah,
World
I was
Cups
gonna say
anyway.
that's cool now
So
that like
there
since the
you
women
go.
are way
So,
better historically.
exactly.
Yeah.
So that gives me
Well-
a little bit of hope as well. That will do it for us, for all of my guests. Robert Koch, Chuck Panaccio, Jordy Comas, Jillian Kratzner, and Dr. Chinchilla. First, Doctor, thank you for being here, because I know you don't feel great, but I appreciate you being here. I look forward to continuing to work with you. So thanks for braving, working through the voice and the stuffiness and all that stuff. So thank you for that. For everybody that was in the chat and contributed to the conversation, Ashley, Mike Laws, Randall, thanks everybody for being here. We appreciate it very, very, very much. If you have missed any of tonight's program, you can go to our YouTube channel, which is also titled That Other Side of Information. Lots of that other sides of information. Instagram, TikTok. I'm looking at my cheat sheet. Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Patreon, TikTok, all that other side of information. You will find all of our programs on our YouTube channel recorded. You can listen, watch in pieces, bits, however it is that you take in such things. You can do it all there. Of course, the program will live on everywhere that it has been shared on Facebook as well. We return on Sunday at our normal time, 5 p.m. Eastern time. My guest is going to be Sergeant Thomas Mack. We have, you've seen Mack on the program before. We have a special announcement for you on Sunday, 5 p.m. Sunday. The Kennedy Effect returns live. I think Sunday is the 22nd, if he can do math in his head real quick. Yes, the 15th and 7 is 22. We'll be back on the 22nd, 5 p.m. Eastern time. Please be with us then. Until then, please, everyone, take care of yourselves and each other. Good night.